Hello and welcome back. In this video, we'll cover import sets. Import sets provide a way to import data into a staging table and then transform or cleanse the data before it is stored in a desired target table. Import sets provide the functionality to import the data and store it in a staging table, and transform maps provide the functionality for the mapping of data from its source table to its target table. Import sets and transform maps are very powerful and can leverage scripting for advanced functionality. ServiceNow supports a number of data sources. There is support for CSV files, XML files, Excel files, LDAP, FTP, SFTP, ODBC, and JDBC, as well as web services. When the data is imported, it can either be stored in a staging table or it can be directly placed in the target table. However, it's best practice to first store the data in a staging table. Now let's walk through the process. First, we load the data into the system using an import set. Next, we create a transform map and configure the mappings for each data point from its source table to its target table. Finally, we transform the data from the source table into the target table. It's important to note that transform maps may be created before the data is loaded if you have an understanding of which fields will be loaded into the staging table. Now let's take a look at import sets and transform maps in ServiceNow. We'll go over an example of loading user data into a source table and then transforming the data into the sysuser table. I have a spreadsheet here with 3 users. There are columns for the first name, last name, email, phone, title, and user ID. If we navigate into the System Import Sets application, we see a number of modules such as Load Data, Create Transform Map, Run Transform, Data Sources, and so on. We'll start by loading the data. We'll create a new staging table to store the freshly uploaded data and provide a name of new employees import. Then we'll attach our .xls file. We'll leave the sheet number to 1 since our data is on the first tab in Excel, and the header row to 1 since the first row contains our fields. We'll then click Submit. Once the upload is complete, we'll click on the loaded data to view the staging table with the 3 records that were just uploaded. If we go into a record, we see all of our fields. It's important to note that the phone is an integer field since I did not set it to a text field in Excel. Now we'll create a transform map. We'll provide a name, select the source table, and set the target table to sysuser. Once the transform map is created, we can click the Auto Map Matching Fields related link, which will attempt to match the source fields with the target fields. Now we'll navigate into the Mapping Assistant. Here we see the source fields on the left and the target fields or sys user fields on the right. In the middle we have our field map. These fields were automatically mapped by the auto mapping process we just ran. It looks like the user ID field is missing, so we'll find the user ID field in the source table and drag it over to the map. Now we'll locate the user ID field in the target table and drag it over to the map as well. Now we see our 6 source fields are mapped to the 6 target fields. We'll click Save, and at the bottom of the transform map, under the Field Maps related list, we see our mapped fields. We also have the option to coalesce on certain fields. So for example, if we were updating information, we could coalesce on a unique key such as the user ID. This way the system would update the user fields rather than creating new duplicate users. We can also add scripts to the transform map. We'll uncheck the Run Business Rules box, which will not execute the onInsert business rules that are on the sysuser table for the newly created users. This is best practice if it is not required and is better for performance. Finally, we'll update our transform map and click the Run Transform module. We have our import set selected here and the transform map on the right. We'll now click Transform. If we go into Transform History, we see the Transform History record. Here we see stats related to our transform. We had a total of 3 operations, which were all inserts. We can also view the import log. Now we'll navigate into the sysuser table and we see our new users here. We see the user ID, first name, last name, title, email, and business phone. We'll remove the commas in the phone since the import recognized it as an integer field. We could have fixed this in the transform map, or we could have set the fields to text in the Excel spreadsheet. Now we'll take a look at the other modules in the System Import Sets application. The Data Sources module lists all data source records. If we click New, we see the different fields associated with the data source. We can select a type and format. We also have our transform maps and schedule imports. If we navigate into the example LDAP user import, we can see this is scheduled to run on a daily basis. There is also an execute now function. Finally, there are import logs, histories, and the import set tables.